you, of course, Rebecca and WEF and everybody for inviting Second Nature to be a continuing partner in the survey. We're very excited about that. I thought maybe I'd just take a second. We want to show you the dashboard that we built. It's a dynamic tool, and Tyler from Second Nature, who was really on point for helping build that dashboard, is going to do a demo of that here in just a minute. But leading up to that, I thought I would take a second to talk a little bit about Second Nature and kind of who we are and what our perspective is on the stormwater industry, and really why we're so excited to be participating in the survey. So Second Nature is a software company that makes a cloud-based platform for MS4 program management and compliance automation. We're an early stage technology company based in Santa Cruz, California, and with customers in over 13 states and over $5 billion worth of stormwater assets being managed by our platform now, we're the fastest growing enterprise software company in the stormwater industry. Our mission is to use the power of the cloud and geographic information systems to get a dynamic, science-informed information basis into your hands as MS4 program managers and regulators to help with programmatic decision making. So we have a core competency not just in stormwater, but also in big data. And the stormwater industry, as we've touched on, of course, is rapidly changing, evolving. And the infrastructure funding announcements and environmental equity plans of the Biden administration are examples of some of the macro factors that are influencing and accelerating our industry. And so the highly distributed nature of stormwater assets in our industry, combined with the reporting requirements around the permit, make data centralization really important to understanding priorities. So that's really the basis for our interest at Second Nature in participating in the survey. And as Seth often says, as stormwater matures and really gains a seat at the adult table in the water world, having a comprehensive understanding of priorities and the status of the industry is invaluable, kind of across the board. So with that, we're going to pause for a second and we're going to do another survey. Rebecca's going to put up the survey, and then I'm going to introduce Tyler Nodine, who's a senior scientist at Second Nature, and he's going to take us through the dashboard itself.
Thanks, Jason. I just launched that second poll. It's just asking if you use dashboards. Are you familiar with other dashboards? I know, during the beginning of the pandemic, I used several different coronavirus dashboards, so they are handy. So just asking in general if you use dashboards. So it looks like we have about 55% are familiar with dashboards, sometimes use them. Great. Thank you. I'll pass it over to you, Tyler.
Thanks, Rebecca, and thank you, Seth and Jason, for setting the stage. So again, I'm Tyler Nodine from Second Nature Software, and I'm going to give a demo of the MS4 Needs Assessment Survey dashboard. And hopefully this can showcase its functionality to you all and highlights some of the value it can provide to users. So you should all see on the screen the data dashboard live right now. So it's great to hear that some people in the audience have some experience with dashboards. This dashboard is currently live and accessible through the WEF stormwaterinstitute.org, and there'll be links provided to the dashboard directly. And if anyone would like to log on to the dashboard and follow along with the demo at home, I encourage you to do so. So starting with the basics, a data dashboard is a tool that's used to convey a large amount of information on a single screen using location-based analytics and interactive data visualizations. Dashboards like this one give users the ability to slice and dice the data in customized ways to answer questions that are relevant specifically to them. As has been discussed in Seth's presentation, there's a lot of information captured in the 2018 and 2020 MS4 surveys, and not all of that can be conveyed in static reports. So the data dashboard provides a great tool for users to explore the findings of the survey in a more detailed and customized way. So I'm going to start with a general overview of what's included in the dashboard, and then I'm going to go through the data panels in more detail through the lens of a specific MS4 program manager. So looking at the dashboard, on the left, we've included information on the survey background and response rates. And for any of these data panels, you can click on the expand button in the upper right-hand corner to zoom in on figures. So in this map of survey response rates, if we expand the legend, we can see response counts for the different EPA regions. And then if we expand the layers view, we can also toggle between looking at 2020 response counts as well as 2018 response counts to see how response rates differed between the two surveys. So closing out of that, we also have response rate shown by permittee type. We see 67% of respondents were of phase 2 MS4s. And then we have more survey background information where there's links to the full report. The rest of the dashboard follows the structure of the survey itself, which Seth described in some detail earlier. So in the middle pane, we show data from the questions related to program challenges and drivers. And then on the right, we have information from the resource needs and funding questions, as well as some additional program questions in the bottom right. A key feature I also want to bring to attention now is the filter options that are up here at the top of the dashboard. These menus let users, will let you filter survey data by the survey year, by EPA region, and by MS4 permit type. And as you select these features, you can see the data change in real time. So if I click on the 2018 button, I can see results from the 2018 survey. I can select to see data from across the country or a specific EPA region. And then I can also look at different permit types. So I can switch between phase 1, or if I just want to look at phase 2 responses, I can do that. These filter tools can help highlight how MS4 program challenges, drivers, and funding needs vary across the country, and sort of to the points from the polls earlier, can help programs better understand how they compare with other similar programs in their region and across the country. And another thing I want to note now is that even with the data filtering functionality we have in the dashboard, we still took great care to make sure that the dashboard keeps all survey respondents 100% anonymous. Okay, so next I'm going to walk through the data panels in a little bit more detail through the lens of a specific stormwater program to again try to show how we can gain insight and value from the dashboard and see how different regions and permit types compare to one another. So let's say I'm a program manager of a phase 2 MS4 program in Michigan, which is in EPA region 5. So I'm already selected here on EPA region 5 and looking at phase 2 MS4 permittee types. So with these filters in the lower left-hand corner, we have, and let's look at the current 2020 responses. So in the lower left, we have the number of survey responses for active filters. So we can see there was 146 respondents that were of phase 2 type in EPA region 5. So it's a fairly robust sample size for this group. We also have shown the estimated population served by programs under the active filters. So if I switch between, switch to the other tab down here, we can see that 10 million people are estimated to be served by those 146 programs that we're looking at here. Okay, let's look at some of the survey response data now. In the center panel, we show top MS4 programs and challenges, which Seth touched on earlier. And as was described before, participants were asked to specify which factors in the list here pose the strongest challenges to their program. And for Region 5, Phase 2 MS4s, we see aging infrastructure and funding and availability of capital come out at the top, as well as increasing and expanding regulations. And we can compare this with the national responses. And if we recall from Seth's slides, it aligns pretty well with what we're seeing across the country. Similarly, we can see how maybe some of these challenges have changed over time since 2018. But again, see sort of the same challenges rise to the top. Similarly, we can look at drivers of MS4 planning. So on the second tab here for Region 5, Phase 2 MS4s, we see a list of sort of the top drivers that programs indicated for planning and investment decisions. So again, we see aging infrastructure come out at the top, as well as water quality being an important driver. If we compare this with another region, say Region 7, adjacent, EPA Region 7, we see water quality becomes less common driver for programs, and land development seems to be a much more important factor. Okay, next let's look at survey responses specific to resource needs and funding. This is the panel in the upper right. So when asked what were the top areas of information and resource needs, again, we see funding and financing rise to the top. And let's switch back to our study case, looking at Region 5, again, Phase 2 MS4s. And yes, we still see funding and financing rise to the top. And in this panel, and as with most panels, we have several tabs stacked on top of each other. So when using the dashboard, I want to remind everyone to check out the stacked charts that are included. So if we flip to the next tab, we see the proportion of participants who indicated having an annual funding gap. And for, again, Region 5, for our study case, we see that in 2018, just less than 50% indicated an annual funding gap. And in 2020, we see well over 50%. So an interesting, notable increase there. If we flip to tab 3, this is the estimated average annual program budget that was reported. So at $984,000, we see that the Region 5 Phase 2 MS4s fall slightly below the national average for Phase 2 MS4s at $1.4 million. And if we flip to the fourth tab in this stack, we see the reported annual funding shortfall or budget gap. So that comes at $1 million for EPA Region 5 Phase 2. And again, we can compare this with national average and then different permittee types. So comparing with Phase 1, we see Phase 1 programs tend to have larger budgets and larger budget gaps associated with those. So finally, I want to touch on the last panel down here on the bottom right. These are some additional program questions that Seth alluded to earlier and described some of them in more detail. So we have questions like, does your program use watershed-based stormwater planning? Do you have a stormwater asset management plan? Do you have TMDL requirements as part of your permit? How are resources allocated in your program? And what are your views on the federal stormwater program's efficiency? So that covers all the data panels that are included. in the dashboard. And I wanted to reiterate what Seth highlighted earlier, that these surveys are the first of their kind, and we're happy to be able to provide a tool to help people dive deeper into their findings. We hope that the dashboard can help users better understand the stormwater sector and how they compare to other programs. And we definitely invite you to visit the dashboard and explore more on your own. And we also encourage you to sign up for future surveys to help out with these efforts. In the bottom middle of the dashboard, there's an orange button, and if you click on that, that will send you to an online form where if you fill in your information, you'll be added to a list, and we'll let you know when the future surveys come out and how you can participate.